Kristin Houle is the Executive Director for the Texas Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty, and Jeffrey Patterson is the Executive Director for the Texas Catholic Conference, coming together for a series of events here in the next week or so. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
The issue of the death penalty, and we'll get to the events coming up here in just a second. I know it's all about the term that you're using for the events, rethinking the death penalty. Kristin, update us on what's going on in terms of the execution rate in Texas, because just on the surface, you know, my recollection is that the numbers have changed drastically, that there are not that many either sentences or even executions carried out as maybe the last 10 years.
That's right, Paul. The death penalty landscape in Texas and nationally has changed dramatically over the last 10, 15 years. Texas has now gone from a peak of 48 new death sentences in 1999 to this year, 2, and those have only come in the last week. So this is a tremendous change from, the previous decades when juries were sentencing, 13, 15, 20 people to death a year. In terms of executions, our state has carried out 12 executions to date in 2015. There's one more scheduled. This also is, far cry from years past when the state of Texas carried out 25, 30 executions. Unfortunately, though, Texas is an outlier still nationally. We're accounting for about half of the executions nationwide as we see, challenges to lethal injection protocols and troubles finding drugs put executions on hold in almost every other state in the country.
Legislatively, was there a path to the decline that we're seeing right now? I mean, what are some of the things that may have happened in the last session or two that have perhaps changed the landscape?
There are several factors leading to this decline in new death sentences. The primary factor, and really the leading factor, was the adoption of life in prison without the possibility of parole as a sentencing option in capital murder cases. That was finally adopted by the legislature in 2005, thanks to the leadership of Senator Lucio, one of the leaders and organizers of this event on Friday. And that really has given prosecutors a lot more discretion in deciding how to pursue capital murder cases in their districts, and it's also given juries some discretion. We've seen 3 cases this year where juries were seated specifically to consider the death penalty and opted not to impose it. Some other factors include, just growing awareness of the risks of wrongful convictions, and our legislature has really done a tremendous job of addressing some of those issues. Improvements in the quality of legal counsel appointed to defendants facing the death penalty, and then finally, just the recognition of the exorbitant cost of death penalty trials. That has led many prosecutors decide not to burden their counties with the cost of a death penalty trial, which can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and much more than a trial where they're seeking life without parole.
You mentioned Senator Lucio. Let me bring Jeff in on this with the symposium. He's a big part of the reason the symposium is going on. Tell us about the symposium, and also in light of, we just had Pope Francis here in the U.S. visit, and he addressed this subject.
Yeah, Senator Lucio has really been a legislator who's been driven by his faith. He is Catholic and is driven by his faith, and I think is pretty much his leadership on this issue is because of his opposition to the death penalty and because of the church's faith. And the fact, I think, that as Kristin indicated, I think there's been a lot more attention to the issue of the death penalty, particularly after Pope Francis's visit and his proclaim before the United States Congress to end the death penalty worldwide. I think that's had a tremendous effect. I think also we've had a lot of cases in recent years in which people have been wrongfully convicted, and it's been proven through DNA evidence or other information. And if there's one thing that Texans want more than making sure people are punished for the crimes they commit, is they want to make sure that somebody who's being punished actually committed the crime. Yeah. And that's the most important thing. And so hearing these, especially with the ultimate penalty of the death penalty, I think people are a little wary about prosecuting folks and not having the evidence to prove it to put somebody to death.
What is the public sentiment these days from your assessment? We have the very famous Michael Morton case regarding DNA in particular, and there are many, many other cases like his. Is this what lawmakers are really kind of pointing at as perhaps any shift in their attitude towards it?
I think so. I think it really has created openings with lawmakers, across the aisle, in both chambers and in all parties in Texas and nationally. There's really this, recognition, at least in states that have abolished the death penalty, that it's just not worth the risk to maintain the death penalty. In Texas, what we've seen legislators focus on are some of those root causes leading to wrongful convictions, like faulty forensic science, mistaken eyewitness identification, some other of those key factors that have led, to our state to have 13 people exonerated from death row, and I think more than 50 now people exonerated based on faulty DNA evidence.
Well, and the other is, we talk about this being a legislature that's very much pro-life, and I think that there are a lot of legislators who have come to the realization that being pro-life is not just in being pro-birth, but it means being pro-life throughout the entire life cycle. And so to making that rationalization so that the death penalty is just as wrong as a way of ending life, that's the thing that we need to support the sanctity of life. And I think that's really had an effect within the legislature as well.
Within the time that we have left here, a minute or so, give us a sense of the symposium and then what's happening Saturday. I know, for example, one of the breakout sessions during the symposium deals with racial and ethnic disparity as an example. I mean, there's a lot of issues to the death penalty, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's right. I mean, the death penalty has never been imposed uniformly across the state of Texas, and that's even more true today. We just have 5 counties account for the majority of death sentences over the last 5 years. Another thing that has been true throughout Texas's history with the death penalty is its disproportionate imposition on people of color. We've had about 70% of those new death sentences imposed on people of color, mostly African American defendants. And when you look at specific counties like Dallas County and Harris County, those patterns are even more astonishing. So we really have long-standing concerns about racial bias when it comes to imposition of the death penalty and who actually ends up on death row in our state.
We're almost out of time, but I know that former Governor White, for example, is going to be there. Tell us a little bit about what Friday is about, what you hope to accomplish, and then Saturday.
Well, on Friday, we want to have a full discussion about the issues, the real issues that have been raised in recent times about the questions we have about the death penalty, how it's imposed, the morality of it, how it's the equality of it being put through. And Governor White is terrific about that. I mean, somebody who's a governor who made these kind of decisions to contribute to that. On Saturday, we're going to have a walk in support of abolishing the death penalty that'll take place at St. Austin's. We're going to start there at about 8:30, and we're going to march over to the Capitol and have a rally on the south steps of the Capitol so that people, not only through the conference can we have a sharing of ideas and views, but also get a chance for those people to have their voices heard at the Capitol itself and to the legislators there.
Okay, well, just a little sampling of some of the discussion that will be taking place. Again, our appreciation to both Kristin and Jeff for being here to preview the event. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And next, political analysts Harold Cook and Ted DeLisi join us. More Capitol tonight after the break.